I never thought my own cousin would be the one to tear my marriage apart. Sarah had always been close to our family, too close as it turns out. The betrayal still burns in my chest whenever I think about it, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me start from the beginning. My wife Emma and I had been married for 5 years. We lived in a modest 2-bedroom house in a quiet suburb of Boston. Nothing fancy, but it was ours, and we'd worked hard for it. Emma was a paediatric nurse at Massachusetts General, and I managed a local branch of Citizens Bank. We weren't rich, but we were comfortable, and more importantly, we were happy, or so I thought. Sarah was my cousin from my mother's side. She was 2 years younger than me, always a bit of a free spirit. She'd bounce from job to job, relationship to relationship, never quite finding her footing. I'd always felt a sense of responsibility toward her, especially after her parents, my aunt and uncle, divorced messily when she was in high school. Maybe that's why I never questioned it when she started asking to stay at our place more frequently. "Hey James, can I crash at your place tonight? My roommate's boyfriend is over again, and I can't deal with their noise," she'd text. Or, "My heating's broken, and the landlord won't fix it until next week. Can I stay with you guys for a couple days?" Emma was always welcoming at first. "Family is family," she'd say with that warm smile that had made me fall in love with her. But over time, I noticed her patience wearing thin. Sarah would leave wet towels on the bathroom floor, help herself to Emma's expensive face creams, or borrow clothes without asking. Small things, but they added up. "Don't you think Sarah's been staying over a lot lately?" Emma mentioned one night as we were getting ready for bed. "I mean, I like her, but it feels like she's here every other weekend." "She's going through a rough patch," I defended. "You know how hard it is to afford rent in Boston these days. She'll get back on her feet soon." Emma sighed, that little crease forming between her eyebrows. "I know, and I want to help. It's just, I feel like we never have time just for us anymore." I kissed her forehead, promising to talk to Sarah about finding more permanent solutions. But I never did. That was my first mistake. The day everything changed started normally enough. It was a Thursday in October, crisp autumn air making the leaves dance across our driveway. I was heading out for a 3-day banking conference in New York, something I'd been dreading but couldn't get out of. "Are you sure you'll be okay by yourself?" I asked Emma as I packed my suitcase. She rolled her eyes playfully. "James, I'm a grown woman. I think I can manage 3 days without you." I know. I zipped up my bag. "I just hate leaving you alone." "I won't be alone the whole time," she said, checking something on her phone. "I've got a night shift tomorrow, and then brunch with Melissa on Saturday." I nodded, only half listening as I double-checked my conference schedule. As I was about to head out the door, my phone pinged with a text from Sarah. "Cousin, can I sleep at your place tonight?" Or, "Got locked out again, and the landlord's out of town." I showed Emma the message, and she hesitated for just a second before nodding. "Sure, she can use the guest room. At least I'll have company tonight." I texted Sarah back with a quick, "Sure, Emma's home," not thinking much of it. I kissed Emma goodbye, told her I loved her, and headed to the airport. The conference was as boring as expected. Endless PowerPoint presentations about quarterly projections and customer retention strategies. I texted Emma throughout, but her responses were shorter than usual. I figured she was busy with work and didn't think much of it. On Friday evening, during a particularly dull networking event, I realised I'd left my presentation notes for the next day on my laptop at home. I tried calling Emma, but she didn't pick up, probably at work for her night shift. On a whim, I decided to call Sarah, thinking she might still be at our house. No answer from her either. I tried again an hour later. Still nothing. A knot of unease began to form in my stomach. It wasn't like Sarah not to answer her phone. She was practically glued to it. I told myself I was being paranoid, but something felt off. Around midnight, unable to sleep in my hotel room, I decided to check our home security app, something we'd installed after a break-in down the street last year. I hardly ever looked at it, but tonight, some instinct pushed me to open it. The app showed movement in our living room at 10:30 p.m. Emma should have been at work by then, and Sarah, well, I assumed she'd be in the guest room or out somewhere. Curiosity piqued, I clicked on the footage. What I saw turned my blood to ice. Emma wasn't at work. She was in our living room on our couch with Sarah. They weren't just talking. They were arguing intensely, gesturing wildly, tears streaming down Emma's face. I couldn't hear what they were saying. We hadn't splurged for the audio feature, but their body language told me everything I needed to know. This wasn't a normal conversation. I watched, transfixed, as Sarah suddenly grabbed Emma's wrists, pulling her closer. Emma tried to push her away, but Sarah held on. Then, to my complete shock, Sarah leaned in and kissed Emma forcefully on the lips. My wife froze for a second, then shoved Sarah away hard enough that she stumbled backward. Emma was shouting now, pointing toward the door. Sarah stood her ground, saying something that made Emma cover her face with her hands. When Emma looked up again, her expression had changed from anger to fear. Sarah took out her phone, showed Emma something on the screen. Whatever it was made my wife go pale. They talked for a few more minutes, Sarah doing most of the talking now, gesturing with that confidence she always had when she knew she was getting her way. Finally, Emma nodded slowly, defeated. Sarah smiled, that same smile she'd give me when I'd agree to let her stay, just one more night. She kissed Emma on the cheek, grabbed her purse, and left. The timestamp showed 10:58 p.m. Emma sat on the couch for a long time after Sarah left, not moving, just staring at nothing. Then she picked up her phone, made a call, probably to the hospital to say she couldn't come in, and went upstairs to our bedroom. I sat in my hotel room, my mind racing, trying to make sense of what I'd just witnessed. Had Sarah been making advances on my wife? And what had she shown Emma on her phone that had caused such fear? I tried calling Emma again. Straight to voicemail. Same with Sarah. I considered driving back to Boston right then, but it was the middle of the night, and I had obligations the next morning. Besides, I needed time to process what I'd seen, to figure out how to approach this situation without exploding. I barely slept that night, replaying the scene in my mind, torturing myself with questions. By morning, I'd decided to cut the conference short and head home that evening instead of Sunday as planned. I went through the motions of my presentation, barely aware of what I was saying, and made excuses about a family emergency. As I was packing, my phone finally buzzed with a text from Sarah. "Hey, cousin. Hope the conference is boring as hell. Just wanted to let you know I'm staying at your place again tonight. Emma said it was cool. See you Sunday." My hands shook with anger as I read it. The casual tone, the assumption that she could just invite herself over. Knowing what had happened the night before. I didn't respond. Instead, I tried calling Emma again. This time she picked up on the third ring. "Hey," she said, her voice oddly flat. "Hey, everything okay? You sound tired." "Just a long shift." A pause. "How's the conference?" Fine. Listen. Sarah texted me saying she's staying over again tonight. Is that okay with you? You don't have to say yes if you don't want to." Another pause, longer this time. "It's fine. We've worked things out." "Worked things out?" I repeated, my heart pounding. "What do you mean?" "Nothing, just... You know how she can be sometimes. Everything's fine now." Something in her voice told me everything was far from fine. "Emma, what's going on? I can come home right now if you need me to." "No," she said quickly. "No, finish your conference. We're good here, I promise." After we hung up, I sat on the edge of the hotel bed, a decision crystallizing in my mind. I wasn't going to wait until evening. I was going home now. The drive from New York to Boston took longer than usual due to weekend traffic, giving me plenty of time to stew in my thoughts, imagining increasingly terrible scenarios. By the time I pulled into our driveway around 4 p.m, I was a mess of anxiety and anger. Sarah's beat-up Honda was parked on the street in front of our house. I sat in my car for a moment, taking deep breaths, trying to calm myself. I hadn't told Emma I was coming home early. I wanted to see what was happening with my own eyes, not through a security camera. I unlocked the front door quietly and stepped inside. The house was silent, but I could smell something cooking. Emma's signature lasagna from the scent of it. I set my bags down softly and moved toward the kitchen, The scene I walked in on wasn't what I expected. Emma was at the stove, stirring something, while Sarah sat at our kitchen island, scrolling through her phone. They both looked up when I entered, startled. "James!" Emma's face registered shock, then something else. Relief. Fear. I couldn't quite tell. "What are you doing home so early?" "Finished up sooner than expected," I lied, eyes moving between them. "Thought I'd surprise you." Sarah recovered more quickly than Emma. "Cousin!" she exclaimed, hopping off the stool to give me a hug. I returned it stiffly. "Perfect timing. Emma's making her famous lasagna." "I can see that," I said, watching my wife's face carefully. She wouldn't meet my eyes. Can I talk to you for a second? In private?" I'm kind of in the middle of cooking," she hedged, gesturing to the stove. "It's important," I insisted. Sarah raised her eyebrows. "I can watch the sauce if you need to talk," she offered, her voice innocent but her eyes calculating. Emma looked trapped. "Fine," she finally said. "Let's go upstairs." As soon as our bedroom door closed behind us, I turned to her. "What the hell is going on, Emma?" "What do you mean?" Her voice was steady, but her hands fidgeted with the hem of her shirt. "I saw the security footage from last night," I said, watching her face pale. "I saw Sarah kiss you. I saw you arguing. What did she show you on her phone that scared you so much?" Emma sank onto the edge of our bed, the fight going out of her. "You weren't supposed to see that." "Obviously," I snapped, then immediately regretted my tone. I sat beside her, lowering my voice. Please, talk to me. Whatever it is, we can figure it out together." She looked at me then, her eyes filled with tears. "It's not that simple. James, try me." She took a deep, shuddering breath. "Sarah's been inappropriate with me for a while now. Little comments, standing too close, accidentally, walking in when I'm changing. I tried to ignore it, tell myself I was imagining things. But last night she crossed a line." "The kiss," I said, my hands clenching into fists. Emma nodded. "I told her to leave, that I was going to tell you everything. That's when she showed me." Her voice trailed off. "Showed you what, Emma?" "Messages," she whispered, "between her and your mum." My mother had never approved of Emma. She thought I'd married beneath me. Emma came from a working-class family in New Hampshire. Had put herself through nursing school with loans and multiple jobs. Mum had always hoped I'd end up with someone from our social circle, whatever that meant. But she'd been civil, at least to Emma's face. We saw her a few times a year, endured her passive-aggressive comments and went on with our lives. "What kind of messages?" I asked, though I was beginning to see where this was going. "Horrible things, James. About me, about my family, plans to try to break us up." Emma wiped at her eyes. "Your mum's been giving Sarah money, a lot of money, to spy on us, to look for any dirt she could find. And if she couldn't find any, she'd create some," I finished, feeling sick. Emma nodded. "Sarah told me if I didn't play along with whatever she had planned, she'd tell your mum I came onto her, that I've been unfaithful. She has pictures of us together, innocent ones, but she said she could make them look compromising. She said your mum would make sure you believed her, not me." "And you thought I would?" I asked, hurt that she could believe I'd trust my cousin and mother over her. "I don't know what to think anymore," Emma admitted. "Sarah said your mum has proof I've been talking to my ex, that she hired a private investigator." "That's ridiculous," I started, but then hesitated. "Have you been talking to your ex?" Emma looked away. "Jason reached out a few months ago. His mum has cancer, and he was a mess. We got coffee once, just as friends. I didn't tell you because I knew you'd be upset and it wasn't a big deal." I felt a pang of jealousy but pushed it aside. This wasn't about Jason. This was about Sarah and my mother trying to manipulate us. "So Sarah's blackmailing you? To what end?" "I'm not entirely sure," Emma said. "She keeps hinting that she wants to move in with us permanently, that she deserves a share of what we have because she's family. I think she's jealous." "James," Of our life, our marriage, our house, and your mum's using that jealousy to try to drive us apart. I stood up, pacing the room as anger surged through me. We need to confront her. Both of them. No, Emma grabbed my arm. You don't understand. Your mum has influence at the hospital. She's friends with the board members. She could ruin my career with one phone call. She wouldn't go that far, I said, but even as the words left my mouth, I wasn't sure. My mother could be vindictive when she felt slighted, and she'd never made secret her belief that Emma wasn't good enough for me. I can't take that chance, Emma said. I've worked too hard to get where I am. I sat back down, taking her hands in mine. So what's the plan here? Just let Sarah keep staying here, keep manipulating us. Emma shook her head. I don't know. I was trying to buy time, figure out a solution. I thought if I could get copies of the messages between her and your mum, we'd have leverage. How were you planning to do that? A flash of determination crossed Emma's face. I spiked her wine last night. Once she passed out, I used her fingerprint to unlock her phone. I stared at my wife in surprise. This calculated side of her was new to me. Did you find anything? Some, but not enough. She must have deleted most of them, but I took screenshots of what I could find. Emma reached for her phone on the nightstand, pulled up the images and handed it to me. The messages were damning. My mother asking Sarah to keep an eye on that gold digger, offering her money for information. Sarah reporting back details of our private lives, arguments Emma and I had had. Financial decisions, even intimate details that made my skin crawl to think Sarah had been privy to. And worse, their explicit plans. If you can get evidence of her cheating, or even make it look like she is, James will finally see her for what she is, my mother had written. The prenup will protect his assets, and you can have the guest house once he comes home where he belongs. The guest house referred to the small cottage on my parents' estate, where I'd lived briefly after college. The implication was clear. My mother expected me to divorce Emma and move back home, with Sarah as some sort of companion or pseudo-wife replacement. The thought made me nauseous. How long has this been going on? I asked, my voice hoarse. From what I could tell, at least a year, Emma said. Maybe longer. I scrolled through more screenshots, each one fueling my anger. Then I stopped on one that made my blood run cold. Get close to James, Sarah had written. Make it look like he's the one cheating. Emma will leave him, and Aunt Vivian will be so disappointed in him that she'll cut him off. The house will go into foreclosure, and I can buy it cheap at auction. 2 birds, 1 stone. My mother's response. Don't be stupid. The house is in both their names. Focus on the original plan. I handed the phone back to Emma, my hands shaking. Sarah's not just following my mother's orders. She has her own agenda. Emma nodded grimly. I figured as much. She's always been envious of what we have. She's downstairs right now in our kitchen, acting like everything's normal, I said, standing up again. I can't just sit here knowing what she's been doing. What are you going to do? Emma asked, a note of fear in her voice. I took a deep breath, trying to think clearly through my anger. First, we need to secure those screenshots. Send them to my phone and email, then delete them from yours in case she checks. Then I'm going to call my mother. James, no. Not to confront her, I clarified. To play dumb. I'll tell her I came home early from the conference and found Sarah here. I'll say something's off between you two, but I can't figure out what. I want to see what she says if she gives anything away. Emma looked uncertain but nodded. And Sarah? We act normal for now. Make her think her plan is working. Meanwhile, we gather more evidence. I paused, thinking. Does she usually drink wine with dinner? Yes, almost always. Good. Spike it again, stronger this time. Once she's asleep, we'll go through everything. Her phone, her laptop, her bags. We need to know exactly what we're dealing with. Emma bit her lip. And then what? I pulled her close, kissing the top of her head. Then we turned the tables on both of them. We returned downstairs to find Sarah stirring the sauce, humming to herself. She'd set the table for 3, including a bottle of red wine already uncorked to breathe. Everything okay? She asked, her tone concerned but her eyes sharp, assessing. Fine, I said, forcing a smile. Just conference stuff I needed to fill Emma in on. Boring bank business, Emma added, moving to take over the cooking. I saw her hand shake slightly as she reached for the spoon. The most boring, I agreed, then turned to Sarah. So, cousin, what's new with you? Still at the marketing firm? Sarah launched into a story about her latest workplace drama, and I pretended to listen while watching Emma slip something from her pocket into the sauce when Sarah wasn't looking. My wife caught my eye briefly, giving me a nearly imperceptible nod. Dinner was an exercise in restraint. Every time Sarah laughed or touched Emma's arm, I wanted to confront her with what I knew. But we stuck to the plan, making small talk, refilling Sarah's wine glass more often than ours. After dinner, I volunteered to do the dishes while Emma and Sarah moved to the living room with their wine. I could hear Sarah's voice getting louder, her words slightly slurred, the alcohol and whatever Emma had added to it taking effect. I took out my phone and called my mother. It was nearly 9 p.m, but she always stayed up late. "James, is everything all right?" she answered, her voice sharp with surprise. "Everything's fine, Mom," I said, keeping my voice low. "I just wanted to check in. I came home early from the conference and found Sarah staying at our place again." "Oh?" The false casualness in her tone confirmed everything. "That's nice of you and Emma to let her stay." "Yeah, well, family is family." "Right?" I said, the words tasting bitter in my mouth. "But something weird is going on. Emma's acting strange and Sarah keeps giving her these looks. I can't quite put my finger on it." A pause, then. "I'm sure it's nothing, dear. Women have their little secrets." "Maybe," I said, "but you know Sarah better than I do these days. Has she mentioned anything to you? Any problems with Emma?" Another pause, longer this time. "Not specifically, no, but I've always sensed that Emma isn't quite comfortable with how close you and Sarah are. Perhaps she's jealous of your family bond." The twisting of reality took my breath away. My mother knew exactly what was happening and was still trying to manipulate me. "You could be right," I said, struggling to keep my voice neutral. "Sarah did mention she might need a place to stay long-term. Her landlord's selling her building or something." "Well, you do have that spare room," my mother said quickly. "And family should help family, don't you think?" "Absolutely," I agreed, my free hand clenching into a fist. "Listen, Mum, I should go. Just wanted to check in." "Of course, dear. And James, maybe don't mention this call to Emma. You know how sensitive she can be about family matters." "Our little secret," I promised. The irony almost choking me. "Good night, Mum." I hung up and stood at the kitchen sink for a moment, trying to process the casual betrayal in my mother's voice. Then I finished the dishes and joined Emma and Sarah in the living room. Sarah was sprawled on the couch, her speech noticeably slurred now, while Emma sat stiffly in an armchair, nursing the same glass of wine she'd had at dinner. "Hey, cousin," Sarah called, patting the space beside her. "Come sit with me. Emma's being a bore." I exchanged a look with Emma, then sat on the opposite end of the couch from Sarah. "You seem to be enjoying that wine." "It's good stuff," she slurred, taking another big gulp. "You always did have expensive taste, James, just like Aunt Vivian." I forced a laugh. "Speaking of Mum, I just talked to her." Sarah's glass paused halfway to her lips. "Oh yeah? What about?" "Nothing specific, just checking in." I watched her face carefully. She seemed surprised I was home early. "Did you tell her I was here?" Sarah asked, a note of anxiety breaking through her drunken haze. "Of course. Why wouldn't I?" Sarah looked at Emma, then back at me. "No reason. Just wondering." She yawned dramatically. "Man, I'm beat, and this wine is hitting me hard. Mind if I turn in early?" "Not at all," Emma said, standing up quickly. "I put fresh towels in the guest bathroom." Sarah stumbled to her feet, swaying slightly. "You're the best, Emma. Both of you. The absolute best." She gave us each a sloppy kiss on the cheek and headed upstairs, using the wall for support. As soon as we heard the guest room door close, Emma and I looked at each other. "That worked almost too well," I whispered. "What did you give her?" Just a mild sleeping pill. Crushed up, Emma said. The same thing I used last night. It's safe with alcohol in small doses. She'll be out cold in 15 minutes. We waited, tension thick in the air between us. Finally, Emma checked her watch and nodded. She should be asleep by now. We crept upstairs and paused outside the guest room door. I knocked softly, then a bit louder when there was no response. Nothing. Carefully, I turned the handle and peeked inside. Sarah was sprawled across the bed, fully clothed, snoring softly. Her purse was on the nightstand, her phone plugged in beside it. I looked at Emma, who nodded encouragingly. We slipped into the room, closing the door behind us. Emma went straight for the phone, using Sarah's limp finger to unlock it again. I started going through Sarah's purse, finding nothing of interest until I reached a hidden inside pocket. There, I discovered a small notebook filled with handwritten notes, dates, times, and observations about Emma and me. More disturbing were several USB drives labelled with dates going back months. "What do you think is on these?" I whispered, showing Emma. She shook her head, looking pale. "I don't know, but we should check them." Meanwhile, Emma had been scrolling through Sarah's phone, taking screenshots and forwarding them to both our emails. "There's so much here," she murmured. "Conversations with your mum going back at least 2 years, plans to come between us, to get you to doubt me." "Any mention of what's on these drives?" I asked. Emma continued scrolling, then suddenly froze. "Oh my God! What?" She turned the phone so I could see. It was a video thumbnail showing our bedroom. The date stamp was from 3 months ago. "She's been recording us?" I felt violated, disgusted. Emma nodded, her face grim. "Not just recording. According to these messages, she's been editing the footage, creating fake evidence of me with other men." She scrolled to another message. "She's been planting cameras in our house every time she stays over." The magnitude of the betrayal was almost too much to comprehend. My cousin, someone I'd trusted, someone I'd tried to help, had been systematically violating our privacy. All in service of my mother's vendetta against my wife and her own twisted envy. "We need to get all of this," I said, my voice shaking with anger. "Every message, every video, every piece of evidence." For the next hour, we methodically went through Sarah's phone, laptop, and the USB drives, copying everything to our own devices. What we found was even worse than we'd imagined. Sarah had installed tiny cameras in our bedroom, bathroom, and living room. She'd recorded private conversations, intimate moments, even arguments, then edited them to create misleading narratives. She'd photographed Emma meeting her ex for coffee, zooming in to make it look more intimate than it was. She'd doctored bank statements to make it appear Emma was hiding money, and my mother was the driving force behind it all. The messages between them showed a calculated campaign to destroy our marriage, with my mother promising Sarah a substantial reward when it was done, a place to live, financial support, even partial ownership of the family business. "Why would my own mother do this?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. My mother had always been controlling, always believed she knew what was best for me, and she'd never thought Emma was good enough. "Power," Emma said simply, looking up from the laptop. "Control over you, over the family legacy. She doesn't see me as your wife. She sees me as an obstacle." As we continued gathering evidence, a plan began to form in my mind. A way to turn their scheme against them, to protect ourselves and make sure they could never threaten us again. "Here's what we're going to do," I said, closing Sarah's laptop and turning to Emma. "First thing tomorrow, we call a lawyer. Not the family lawyer, someone completely independent. We show them everything we've found. The recordings alone are illegal in Massachusetts. It's a 2-party consent state." Emma nodded, her expression hardening with resolve. "We file charges against Sarah." "If necessary, but I'm hoping we won't have to go that far." I took a deep breath, the next part difficult to say. "We're going to confront my mother, together, with all the evidence we've collected." "James, that's too risky." "She has connections, influence." "Not if we threaten to go public," I interrupted. "Can you imagine what this would do to her reputation? The respected Mrs. Vivian Lancaster, caught orchestrating an illegal surveillance operation against her own son and daughter-in-law. The hospital board might be her friends, but they wouldn't stand by her through that kind of scandal. Understanding dawned in Emma's eyes. Mutually assured destruction. Exactly. We don't want to ruin them. We just want them to leave us alone. I glanced at Sarah's unconscious form. As for her, we let her think her plan is working. For now. We carefully returned everything to its place, making sure to leave no trace of our investigation. Before we left the room, I took one last look at my cousin, feeling a mixture of anger and pity. What kind of emptiness must she feel to betray family this way? The next morning, Sarah was hungover and subdued at breakfast, claiming she didn't remember much of the previous evening. We played along, acting normally, even suggesting she stay another night if she needed to. She accepted eagerly, exactly as we'd anticipated. While she was in the shower, Emma and I stepped outside to make some calls. First to a lawyer, who agreed to see us immediately given the nature of the situation. Then to a security expert, who promised to sweep our house for any remaining cameras or listening devices. We told Sarah we had errands to run and left her at the house, where she would undoubtedly continue her snooping, unaware that we'd secured all our important documents and changed all our passwords. The lawyer confirmed what we already suspected. Sarah's actions constituted multiple felonies, including wiretapping, invasion of privacy, and potentially blackmail. My mother could be charged as an accessory. He recommended we go to the police, but understood our reluctance to expose family matters to public scrutiny. At minimum, he advised, you should confront them with the evidence and a written cease and desist order. Make it clear that if they don't comply, you'll pursue criminal charges. We returned home to find Sarah in our kitchen, cooking dinner as if she belonged there. The sight of her standing at our stove, using our ingredients, smiling at us as we walked in, it took every ounce of self-control not to confront her then and there. I thought I'd make my famous spaghetti carbonara, she announced, to thank you guys for letting me crash here again. That's thoughtful, Emma managed, hanging up her coat. Sarah beamed, oblivious to the tension. It's the least I can do. Oh, and Aunt Vivian called while you were out, James. She invited us all to Sunday dinner tomorrow. I exchanged a look with Emma. This was perfect, better than we could have planned. Did she now? And you told her we'd come? Of course, Sarah said, turning back to the stove. I knew you wouldn't want to miss it. It's been ages since you've been to the estate. Indeed it has, I murmured, a plan solidifying in my mind. Indeed it has. That night, we once again waited for Sarah to fall asleep, this time without any sleeping pills, as we no longer needed to search her belongings. Once her light was out, Emma and I sat in the kitchen, finalising our strategy for the next day. Are you sure you want to do this? Emma asked, squeezing my hand. She's still your mother. And you're my wife, I said firmly. The woman I chose to spend my life with. If my mother can't respect that, if she's willing to go to these lengths to destroy our marriage, then she's the one who's broken the family bond, not me. Emma's eyes filled with tears. I never wanted to come between you and your family. You didn't, I assured her. They did this, not you. All you've ever done is love me and work hard to build a life together. I won't let them take that from us. We fell asleep holding each other, both anxious and resolved about what the morning would bring. Sunday dawned bright and clear. Sarah was cheerful at breakfast, clearly believing her plan was working. She suggested we all ride together to my parents' estate, but we declined, saying we might need to leave early due to Emma's work schedule. The drive to the estate was quiet, Emma and I both lost in our thoughts. I hadn't been to my childhood home in nearly a year, not since the last holiday dinner that had ended with my mother making pointed comments about when we were going to give her grandchildren, and how Emma's demanding career might make that difficult. The estate was as imposing as ever, 5 acres of manicured grounds surrounding a colonial-style mansion that had been in the family for generations. My father had died when I was in college, leaving everything to my mother. She'd maintained it meticulously, using it as both a symbol of our family's status and a tool to control access to that status. Sarah's car was already in the circular driveway when we pulled up. I took a deep breath, then reached into the back seat for the folder containing copies of all the evidence we'd gathered. "Ready?" I asked Emma. She nodded, her jaw set with determination. "Ready." The housekeeper answered the door, showing feigned surprise at seeing us. My mother had clearly been expecting us despite the pretense that Sarah had arranged this last minute. We were led to the formal sitting room, where my mother sat like a queen holding court. Sarah perched beside her like a lady in waiting. "James, Emma," my mother greeted us, her smile not reaching her eyes. "What a lovely surprise. Sarah mentioned you might join us today." "Did she?" I said, remaining standing even as my mother gestured toward the sofa. "How convenient." My mother's smile faltered slightly. "Is everything all right, dear? You seem tense." "Oh, I'm tense for a reason, Mother," I said, my voice cold. "We know what you've been doing." Sarah's face drained of colour. My mother's expression remained composed, but I saw the flicker of uncertainty in her eyes. "I'm sure I don't know what you mean." I pulled out my phone, opened one of the screenshots, and held it up for them both to see. A message from my mother to Sarah, explicitly laying out their plan to break up my marriage. "Would you like me to read it aloud, or shall I move on to the evidence of the illegal surveillance?" I asked, my voice steady despite the anger coursing through me. Sarah jumped to her feet. "James, I can explain." "Sit down," my mother commanded, her voice like a whip. Sarah obeyed instantly. My mother turned to me, her expression hardening. "Where did you get that?" "From Sarah's phone," Emma spoke up, stepping forward to stand beside me. "While she was passed out drunk in our guest room, the same room where she planted cameras to spy on us." My mother's eyes darted to Sarah, who shrank under her glare. "You fool," she hissed. "You let them get your phone." "I didn't. I thought," Sarah stammered. "It doesn't matter," I interrupted. "We have everything. The messages, the videos. The edited evidence you were creating. We've spoken to a lawyer. What you've done is illegal on multiple counts." For the first time in my life, I saw fear in my mother's eyes. It was quickly masked by defiance. "You wouldn't dare bring legal action against your own mother, against family." "Wouldn't I?" I countered. "You plotted to destroy my marriage. You invaded our privacy in the most intimate ways possible. You conspired to ruin Emma's career. Tell me, Mother, what part of that is acting like family?" Emma placed the folder on the coffee table between us. "We have copies of everything, backed up in multiple locations. If anything happens to either of us, if you try to retaliate in any way, it all goes public." My mother's face had gone pale, but her voice remained steady. "What do you want?" "First, Sarah leaves. Today. She never contacts us again, never sets foot in our home again." I turned to my cousin, who was now openly crying. "You betrayed me in the worst possible way. Consider our family connection severed." Sarah nodded miserably, unable to meet my eyes. I turned back to my mother. "Second, you stay out of our lives. No more interference, no more attempts to control me or undermine my marriage. No more comments about Emma's background or career choices. If you want any relationship with me going forward, it will be on our terms, with complete respect for my wife and our marriage." "And if I refuse?" my mother asked, though the fight was leaving her voice. "Then we go to the police," Emma said simply, "and to the hospital board, and to every social connection you've ever made. We burn it all down." My mother looked between us, clearly calculating her options. Finally, she nodded stiffly. "Very well. I will respect your wishes." "Not good enough," I said. "I want it in writing. A formal agreement, drawn up by our lawyer, acknowledging what you've done and agreeing to our terms." "You can't be serious," my mother scoffed. "Deadly serious," I confirmed. "The draft is already prepared. You'll receive it tomorrow. Sign it or face the consequences." I turned to leave, taking Emma's hand. "James," my mother called after me, her voice suddenly vulnerable. "You're my only child." I paused, looking back at her. "You should have thought of that before you tried to destroy the family I chose to build." The one that makes me happy. We walked out without another word, leaving behind the stunned silence of two women who had underestimated both our love for each other and our capacity to fight back. In the car, Emma let out a long, shaky breath. Do you think they'll comply? They don't have a choice, I said, starting the engine. My mother values her reputation above all else. She'll sign to avoid the scandal. And Sarah? Sarah follows whoever has power over her. Without my mother's backing, she's nothing. I reached over and squeezed Emma's hand. It's over. They can't hurt us anymore. The following weeks proved me right. My mother signed the agreement without further protest. Sarah moved to Chicago, supposedly for a new job opportunity. We changed our locks, had our house professionally swept for surveillance devices, and began the process of rebuilding our sense of security in our own home. It wasn't easy. There were nights when Emma would wake up in a panic, convinced we were being watched. Times when I'd hesitate before speaking freely in our own living room. Trust, once broken, takes time to restore, not just in others, but in the safety of your own space. But gradually, we reclaimed our home and our marriage. We implemented better boundaries, became more protective of our private life. And in a strange way, the ordeal brought us closer together. There's something powerful about facing a threat as a united front, about choosing each other despite external pressures. 6 months later, we sold the house, too many bad memories, and bought a new place in a different suburb. My mother made tentative overtures toward reconciliation, which I acknowledged but kept at arm's length. Some betrayals can be forgiven but never forgotten. As for Sarah, we heard through family connections that she'd fallen on hard times, bouncing between jobs and relationships as she always had. Sometimes I felt a twinge of pity for her, but it was overshadowed by the memory of her standing in our kitchen, playing the part of the loving cousin while systematically violating our trust. The experience taught me something valuable. Family isn't just about blood, it's about respect, trust, and mutual support. Emma and I had built our own family, one based on love rather than obligation or control, and in the end, that was the bond that proved strongest of all. Looking back now, a year later, I can see the betrayal as a turning point rather than an ending. Emma and I emerged stronger, more unified, more certain of our commitment to each other. We learned to trust our instincts, to recognize when something feels wrong, and to stand firm in defense of the life we've chosen together. The cousin who asked to sleep at our place that night before the betrayal came to light, she's no longer a part of our story, but the lesson she inadvertently taught us about vigilance, about boundaries, about the true meaning of family, that will stay with us forever. As the months passed and we settled into our new home, I found myself reflecting more on the events that had led us here. The betrayal still stung when I thought about it, but its power over me diminished with each passing day. Emma and I had made a conscious decision not to let bitterness take root in our lives, to focus on building rather than dwelling on what had been broken. One rainy Tuesday in April, almost 18 months after the confrontation with my mother and Sarah, I received an unexpected email. The sender's name made my heart skip a beat. Sarah Lancaster. I hovered over the delete button, tempted to erase it without reading, but curiosity won out. The subject line read simply, "I'm sorry." The email was brief. "James, I know I have no right to contact you after what I did. You probably deleted this already, and I wouldn't blame you. But in case you're reading, I want you to know that I'm getting help now. Real help, for the issues that made me think it was okay to hurt the people who were kindest to me. I'm not asking for forgiveness or a second chance. Some bridges stay burned. I just wanted you to know that I understand now how wrong I was, and I'm truly sorry for the pain I caused you and Emma." Sarah? I stared at the screen for a long time, unsure how to feel. Part of me wanted to believe she was sincere, that she had genuinely recognized the harm she'd done. Another part suspected this was just another manipulation. I decided to show the email to Emma when she got home from her shift at the hospital. She read it silently, her expression unreadable. "What do you think?" I asked when she handed my phone back. Emma sighed, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. a gesture I'd come to recognize as her gathering her thoughts. I think it doesn't really matter if she's sincere or not. What do you mean? Her apology isn't for us, it's for her. Maybe she's genuinely remorseful. Maybe this is part of some therapy program she's in, or maybe it's another game. But either way, we get to choose whether to let it affect us. Emma looked at me, her eyes gentle but firm. We've moved on, James. We've rebuilt. Do you really want to open that door again? Even just a crack? As always, my wife's wisdom cut straight to the heart of the matter. No, I said finally. I don't. I never responded to Sarah's email. Some chapters are better left closed. My relationship with my mother took a different path. After 6 months of silence following the confrontation, she reached out through her lawyer, requesting a meeting. Against Emma's better judgment, I agreed to see her, alone, in a public place. We met at a cafe downtown, neutral territory. My mother looked older than I remembered. The imperious queen diminished somehow. She'd always been meticulous about her appearance, but I noticed her hands trembling slightly as she stirred her tea. "Thank you for coming," she said, her voice lacking its usual commanding tone. I nodded but said nothing, waiting. "I've had a lot of time to think," she continued, her eyes on her cup rather than meeting mine. "About what I did. About why I did it." "And?" I prompted when she fell silent. "And I was wrong." The words seemed physically painful for her to say. Not just in my actions, which were inexcusable, but in my thinking. In my belief that I knew what was best for you better than you did. I studied her face, looking for signs of insincerity, finding none. What changed? She looked up then, her eyes suddenly vulnerable in a way I'd never seen before. "I almost lost my son. That's what changed." She took a shaky breath. "After your father died, you became everything to me. My whole world narrowed to you, to ensuring you had the future he and I had planned. I couldn't see that I was suffocating you, trying to force you into a life that wasn't yours to live. So you decided to destroy my marriage instead." I couldn't keep the edge from my voice. "I thought I was protecting you." She shook her head. "No, that's not entirely true. I was protecting my vision of what your life should be. I didn't see Emma as the woman you loved. I saw her as an obstacle to the future I'd imagined for you. It was selfish and cruel, and I am deeply ashamed." The rawness in her voice caught me off guard. My mother had never been one to show vulnerability or admit fault. "Why should I believe you now?" I asked, though with less heat than before. She reached into her purse and pulled out an envelope, sliding it across the table. "I've been seeing a therapist. At her suggestion, I've written you a letter. A proper apology, not excuses. You can read it now or later or never. That's your choice." I took the envelope. Weighing it in my hand. "And Emma, you owe her an apology too." "I know." My mother nodded. "I'd like to speak with her if she's willing. If not, I understand. I've written her a letter as well." She paused. "I don't expect forgiveness, James, but I hope, with time, we might find a way to have some kind of relationship again. On your terms, not mine." I didn't make any promises that day. I took the letters, told her I'd think about it and left. But it was a beginning, a tentative step toward a different kind of relationship, one based on mutual respect rather than control. It took 3 more months of careful, limited interactions before I was ready to have my mother over to our new home. Emma, remarkably, was more open to reconciliation than I expected. "People can change if they really want to," she said, when I expressed surprise at her willingness to give my mother another chance. "And holding on to anger only hurts us in the end." The first dinner was awkward, conversation stilted. But my mother made a visible effort, asking Emma about her work at the hospital with genuine interest, complimenting our home without any passive-aggressive undertones. Most importantly, she respected our boundaries, never pushing for more intimacy than we were ready to give. Slowly, a new relationship began to form, not the controlling dynamic of the past, but something more balanced. My mother would never be the warm, nurturing type, but she learned to show her love in ways that didn't seek to dominate or manipulate. And I learned that forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting or pretending the hurt never happened. It means choosing to move forward without letting that hurt define your future. As for Emma and me, the ordeal had transformed our marriage in unexpected ways. We'd been tested and had emerged stronger, with a deeper understanding of each other and what we were capable of together. The betrayal had forced us to communicate more openly, to be more intentional about protecting our relationship from outside influences. One night, about 2 years after the confrontation at my mother's estate, Emma and I were sitting on the back deck of our new home, watching fireflies dance in the gathering dusk. She'd been quieter than usual all evening, a thoughtful look in her eyes. "Penny for your thoughts?" I asked, reaching over to take her hand. She smiled, that same warm smile that had captured my heart years ago. "I was just thinking about everything we've been through. How different things might have been if Sarah had never asked to sleep at our place that night. We might never have discovered what they were doing," I mused. "Exactly." Emma turned to face me fully. As painful as it was, that betrayal forced us to confront some hard truths. About your mother. About how we protect our marriage. She squeezed my hand. About what really matters. I nodded, understanding what she meant. The betrayal had stripped away pretenses, forced us to define what family truly meant to us. It wasn't about blood ties or obligation. It was about choice, about committing to stand by each other even when it would be easier to walk away. "I have something to tell you," Emma said, a new note in her voice that made me sit up straighter. "I've been waiting for the right moment." "What is it?" I asked. Suddenly nervous, she took both my hands in hers, her eyes shining in the fading light. "I'm pregnant." The words hit me like a physical force, joy and disbelief and wonder all rushing in at once. We're... Emma nodded, laughing at my stunned expression. 8 weeks. I confirmed it yesterday." I pulled her into my arms, holding her close as emotions overwhelmed me. We'd been trying for nearly a year, had almost given up hope. And now, this miracle, this new beginning. "A baby," I whispered, my voice thick. "Our baby." Later that night, as Emma slept beside me, I found myself thinking about cycles, how they continue unless consciously broken. My mother's controlling nature had been passed down from her own parents. Sarah's insecurity and jealousy had roots in her childhood experiences, patterns repeating through generations. But cycles can be broken, wounds can become wisdom. The betrayal that had nearly destroyed us had instead taught us how to build something stronger. Something worthy of passing on to the child now growing in Emma's womb. I placed my hand gently on my wife's stomach, making a silent promise to our unborn child. "You will know what real family means. You will be loved for who you are, not for who we want you to be. You will learn from our mistakes and our triumphs both. And you will never doubt that you are enough, exactly as you are." The cousin who asked to sleep at our place that night, she changed the course of our lives in ways she never intended. Her betrayal, meant to destroy, became instead the catalyst for rebuilding something more beautiful and resilient than what had existed before. Sometimes the deepest wounds lead to the most profound healing. Sometimes betrayal is just the beginning of a better story. 6 years later, I stood in the backyard of our home, watching my twin daughters chase each other through the sprinkler, their squeals of delight carrying on the summer air. Emma was 8 months pregnant with our third child, a boy according to the ultrasound, moving more slowly now, but still insisting on joining the weekend barbecue my mother had organised. Yes, my mother, now Grandma Viv to the girls, was setting the picnic table, directing my father-in-law on the proper placement of the potato salad with her characteristic precision. Emma's parents had become regular fixtures in our lives, her father manning the grill while her mother helped the girls make flower crowns from daisies picked from our garden. The path to this peaceful scene hadn't been straight or easy. There had been setbacks in my mother's journey toward becoming a better person, old habits of control resurfacing, requiring firm boundaries and sometimes periods of distance. But she had persisted, motivated by her desire to be part of her grandchildren's lives, to rewrite her story as a mother and grandmother. Sarah remained absent from our lives. We heard occasional updates through the family grapevine. She'd gotten married, moved to Seattle, was working as a marketing executive. I hoped she had found whatever she had been searching for, that peace had found her as it had found us. But her chapter in our story was closed. "Daddy, look!" 5-year-old Lily ran up, proudly displaying a caterpillar crawling across her palm. "Wow, that's a big one," I said, crouching down to her level. "What are you going to do with him?" "Put him in the garden so he can turn into a butterfly," she declared, with the certainty only a child can muster. "Mommy says we have to be kind to all creatures." "Mommy's right," I agreed, watching as she carefully carried her treasure to the flower bed, her sister following close behind. Emma waddled over, one hand supporting her lower back. "Your mother is trying to convince me to let her redecorate the nursery again," she said, amusement in her voice. I laughed, wrapping an arm around her shoulders. "And what did you tell her?" "That we're perfectly capable of picking out our own baby furniture. But she's welcome to buy as many books as she wants for his library." Emma leaned against me. She actually took it pretty well. "Progress," I murmured, pressing a kiss to her temple. We stood together, watching our family, the one we'd chosen, the one we'd built, the one we'd fought for. The betrayal that had once threatened to tear us apart was now just a chapter in our history. A turning point rather than an ending. Life would bring other challenges, other potential betrayals. But we'd learned that what matters isn't the absence of conflict, but how you face it together. Not the perfection of your circumstances, but the integrity of your response. Not the absence of pain, but the presence of love strong enough to weather it. The cousin who asked to sleep at our place that night had unknowingly set in motion events that would test us to our limits. But in doing so, she had given us an unexpected gift. The knowledge of our own strength, individually and as a couple. The certainty that we could face anything as long as we faced it together. And for that, in some strange way, I was grateful. If you like this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your impressions of this story in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the box on the left.